Last year, a mid-sized American city quietly diverted $40 million meant for schools and road repairs into a single line item, pension catch-up payments. Three schools lost their music programs, two fire stations cut a shift. Nobody voted on it. Nobody debated it on the news. It just happened in a budget meeting almost nobody attended. And that city isn't an outlier. It's one of dozens quietly running the same math problem, a hole so large that some estimates put it at $4 to $5 trillion nationwide. That's more than the combined annual budgets of every state government in America combined twice over. It's sitting in the one place nobody thought to check, your state and local government's pension fund. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how much your own city owes and who's actually going to pay for it. Before we get into the whole, we need to rewind. Decades ago, state and local governments made a deal with millions of teachers, firefighters, and city workers. Work for us for 20 to 30 years, take a smaller salary than the private sector, and in return, we'll guarantee you a pension for life, no market risk, a fixed guaranteed check. It sounded great on paper. Public workers took the deal in droves. Except governments needed that pension money to actually grow to cover payouts decades down the line. So they invested it, betting on markets to generate the returns needed to keep the promise. And for a while, that bet worked out fine. Except then 2000 happened, then 2008, then 2020. Every time the market dropped, the gap between what these funds owed and what they actually had got wider. Nobody closed that gap. They promised to catch up later. Later is now. Meet Sarah. She's a school teacher, 22 years in, making $58,000 a year. She was promised a pension of roughly $40,000 a year for life starting at 62, about 70% of her final salary. That promise isn't sitting in a vault waiting for her. It's invested. Stocks, bonds, real estate, and increasingly private equity and private credit. Here's why that last part should worry you specifically. Those assets are illiquid, meaning hard to sell quickly in a downturn, and they carry much higher fees that quietly eat into returns even when the investment does fine. When those investments underperform, the fund can't tell Sarah, sorry, try again next decade. It's a legal obligation. The check has to show up, so someone else covers the difference.
Here's the trick that hides how bad this actually is. Think of it like a credit card company assuming you'll always make your minimum payment on time, every month, forever, so they don't bother setting aside extra reserves for when you don't. That's basically what pension funds do with something called the discount rate, an assumed rate of return, usually 6.5 to 7%, that determines how big the hole looks on paper. Assume 7% forever, and you can tell yourself you need less money saved today. But independent actuarial reviews, cited by groups like the Pew Charitable Trusts and multiple state auditor reports, have found that switching to a more conservative bond-based rate closer to 3% makes the reported shortfall roughly triple or quadruple in some states. So the trillion-dollar number in headlines might be the polite version. It's not fraud. It's closer to a company grading its own homework and rounding every score up. Back to Sarah for a second. Her state's fund is currently funded at under 45%. That means for every dollar promised to her, less than 45 cents actually exists today. The rest is a promise resting on future tax revenue that hasn't been collected yet. She's not alone. Illinois' pension system has ranked among the worst funded in the country for over a decade, and it's a direct reason the state has repeatedly raised income and property taxes just to keep pace with required payments. New Jersey spent years contributing far less than actuaries recommended. It took over a decade of painful catch-up payments and multiple credit downgrades just to start closing the gap. And in a few cities, pension obligations are now larger than the entire annual city budget. I'll show you exactly what happens when a city hits that point, because one already has. Quick pause. If your city had to choose right now, cut park maintenance or cut new hiring to cover a pension gap, which would you pick? Drop parks or hiring in the comments. I'll read through them. There are really only a handful of ways this bill gets paid, and none are painless. Cut services, Fewer teachers per classroom, slower emergency response, unmaintained parks, because more of the budget gets redirected to pension shortfalls instead of the things you actually interact with daily. Raise taxes, property, income, or sales, often disguised as smaller fee increases so it doesn't show up as one big painful number on your ballot. Cut future benefits, creating a two-tier system where a newly hired teacher gets a fraction of what a colleague with 20 years in gets for the identical job.
Or the nuclear option, municipal bankruptcy. Detroit and Stockton both went through this specifically because pension obligations became mathematically impossible to meet. And in bankruptcy court, promises that sounded ironclad were, in some cases, actually reduced. Sarah's $40,000 a year promise isn't guaranteed. It's guaranteed until the math stops working. And then it becomes a negotiation. There's a reason you've probably never heard this broken down before, and it's not an accident. Pension consultants, bond insurers, and the municipal bond market all have a quiet interest in this staying boring. A calm, unremarkable pension report keeps the city's credit rating stable, which keeps borrowing costs low for everyone involved, including the consultants getting paid to manage the fund. It's not a conspiracy, it's just that nobody in the room benefits from being the one who says the number out loud. Meanwhile, it compounds so slowly that the politicians who made the underfunding decisions have usually left office long before the bill actually lands on someone else's desk. So back to that city from the start of this video, the $40 million diverted, the music programs cut, the fire station shift eliminated. It's not because that city's government suddenly stopped caring, and it's not really about which party's in charge. A bill that's been quietly growing for over a decade is finally coming due, and there's no clean way to pay it without someone losing something. Sarah still gets her pension, for now. The teacher hired after her gets a smaller version of the same promise. Her property taxes might rise to cover the gap, or the services she relies on might just quietly get worse, year after year, until she looks around and wonders when it all changed. The real threats are never the loud, headline-grabbing ones. Those are already priced in, already watched by everyone. The real threats are hiding in your own city's budget report, in a spreadsheet almost nobody reads. Here's one thing you can actually do after watching this. Search your state pension funded ratio right now, today. It takes 30 seconds, and it'll tell you exactly how exposed your own city is. If you want it done for you, subscribe, because next week I'm posting a full scorecard ranking all 50 states by pension funding health, worst to best. You'll know exactly where yours lands before your neighbors do.